In order for any organized system to endure long term, it absolutely requires a system of rewards and punishments. That goes triple if your system is corrupt as hell, and nothing is more corrupt than white supremacy. But there's no honor among thieves. So when it seems like the white media or the white business or governmental powers that be are handing out some sort of reward, particularly to the bootlicks, you can bet they're not doing it out of the kindness of their empty little hearts. As I've explained to you before, it's an aspect of the dominant society that they love cruel jokes, particularly ones that go on for a very long time. The longer the better, because for them that makes the payoff even sweeter. So, for these white supremacists, the only thing they love more than taking some bootlick and propping them up is when they inevitably take them down. If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. When Barack Obama got elected, the white media all of a sudden decided that they needed to have some black people on their panels, even a couple who they would give a show to, though they had no long-term plans for them. Oh yeah, you had a number of Negroes who the white media would have on set as their mascots. And these bootlicks thought to themselves that they had arrived, that because of the fact that Obama had gotten into office and the white media felt like giving these guys a little bit of airtime or giving them a regular column, oh, this is the permanent come up. I'm just going to ride this thing to glory henceforth and forevermore. But as you can probably already guess, the white media giveth, and the white media taketh away. So in the waning months of Obama's second and final term, a lot of those Negroes who thought to themselves that they had a permanent gig on cable TV or working for this or that publication, they soon found themselves edged out. Oh yeah, the roly-poly Martins, the Melissa Harris Lacewell round the world in 80 days, Perry, whatever the hell, she found herself edged out. Some of them just found themselves kicked out, shout out Tamron Hall. And then you have a few who basically are like that house guest that doesn't go away. This is where Van Jones comes in. Oh yeah, this guy has been the poster boy for being a broken buck. Crying, boo-hoo. Yeah, this is an idiot who was auditioning to beat the band. You don't get out there doing the most like he was unless you clearly are trying to figure out, is there some white person with money, preferably one who owns some TV station, who I can get to notice this because God knows I need a job. Dick Gregory pointed out that you can't call yourself a real deal white man unless you've got at least $10 or $20 million. Well, this is where men like Jeff Bezos, one of, if not the richest man on the planet, comes in. Because as I posted for you on Twitter, Jeff Bezos, out of the blue, decided that he was going to give Van Jones $100 million. And the way that Bezos put it was that Van Jones can do what he wants with it. Apparently, there's no strings attached. I guess he just did it because Van Jones seems like such a nice guy. Now, if you actually believe that, if you actually believe that a man like Jeff Bezos, who happens to be one of, if not the richest man on the planet, this man who calculated how he was going to be taking over online retail, if you truly believe that he just got up one morning and decided, hey, who's this crying bald-head black fool here on CNN? We have to look that up. Van Jones or something? If you think that he just woke up and decided to give this guy $100 million, you're a damn fool. You see, the bad guys figured out a long time ago that you have tangible benefits and then you got psychic benefits. Now, if you got people who you've given a requisite amount of tangible benefits to, you can, especially if you've stratified the society by race, and you have an underclass who you're trying to make sure stay at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder permanently, well, at a certain point, you don't have to be giving out all these tangible benefits. You just have to make sure that the people who are supposed to be part of the dominant society, just make sure that they don't lose what little they're going to have. And that's enough for them. After that, all you got to do is tell them that they're superior because they're white. Make sure that every TV show is a nonstop glorification of whiteness and white people. And those psychic benefits will be enough for them. But for the bootlicks, for these step and fetch it clowns, who for them being part of the dominant society is so close they can taste it, well, in their case, these guys are so thirsty for just a pat on the head from massa. Why, all you got to do is take some hand-picked bootlick and give him a little bit of money, and man, you'll have every doggone sellout moron from Long Beach to Palm Beach to Coney Island lined up and ready to kill their own mother or every black person in their neighborhood just to see if they can get a couple of dimes too. This is how it is for these bootlicks you see on TV. They're not selling black folks out for a big come up. And you, by the way, you know, if Van Jones of all people, who was one of these empty talking heads on cable TV, you know, with the kind of money that he got, Simone Mamie Sanders, she's got to be in the basement of the White House or whatever broom closet they're hiding her in, sitting there going, man, did I choose the wrong track? I should have stayed on cable TV. You know she's got to be green, blue with yellow polka dots with envy. You know that she is. She's got to be. Oh, yeah, and somewhere the Jamila LaPukes and the Amber Phillips and other assorted garbage, these clowns are all sitting around going, where did we go wrong? We didn't kiss enough butt. But just seeing one of these clowns win the bootlick lottery, now what's going to happen is this is going to cement and guarantee that you're going to have a nonstop flood of these other clowns and sellouts lined up waiting to see what they've got to do, how much behind they've got to kiss in order to see if they can get that kind of a check for themselves. They're not going to. The one Negro at a time rule is in full effect. And as I also told you guys before it's all over, I mean, you ain't got to be a freaking the great Swami to figure this one out. Before it's all over, when white supremacy gives some bootlick that kind of money, they already know how they're going to take it from them. So as surely as night follows day, Van Jones is going to eventually wind up getting indicted for something having to do with sex. Some white woman's going to come out of the woodwork and accuse him of something. Or better yet, some black woman, light-skinned, probably an immigrant, who is going to be doing that, or he's going to wind up getting sued or what have you. They're going to go ahead and Bill Cosby him before it's all over. And you'll have his white colleagues doing we should have known that nigger. We had no idea. You can't even mention his name anymore, you know. Oh, yeah, the memes, when that happens, when that day comes when he gets indicted or sued, because that's what the setup is, the meme of him crying, oh, yeah, you're going to be seeing that 24/7. But I digress, though. You see, after Obama was in the waning months of his second term, the white media started yanking all of them Negroes off of TV, and at that point, you basically had Jackass Reed and Don Lemonade. They were pretty much the only sanctioned Negroes left. But now what you've seen in the last 6 months, all of a sudden, especially as the black grassroots started getting on code and started getting mobilized, you started seeing the white media announcing that idiots like Bakari Sellout and April, I don't want to report the story, I want to be the story, Ryan, and a couple other clowns you never heard of, all of a sudden CNN was talking about how they were going to give these guys a show. By the way, whatever became of that. But in the last 6 months, ever since the black grassroots been shaking things up, here we see Jason Johnson, whose mother happens to work with the FBI and the police, but I'm sure that has no bearing on him. I'm sure that he's also not a little undercover informant. NBC's had him on a little more than usual. Jonathan putting on his cape heart. This goofball, they gave him Joy Reid's old slot. Oh yeah, a few extra Negroes. You got Tiffany Crisscross, who apparently is cross with me for some damn reason. Oh yeah, the white media, all of a sudden, they're giving these clowns shows again. They're trying to up the visibility of the bootlicks in particular. Now, why would they be doing that? The reason for that happens to be this is to try to create what they hope is going to be a center of gravity outside of the black media. Oh yeah, we're going to be putting these bootlicks up here. We're going to be putting these clowns on, and they're going to kind of sort of talk the way that these black folks online do. And we're hoping that if we give these guys airtime and make them prominent, make sure that the Facebook and YouTube algorithms are pushing these guys in everybody's faces. Hopefully over time, more and more black folks will be listening to Joy Reid, telling you what you need to do. And of course, making sure that before it's all over, we start going to the, well, everybody's concerns are equally valid and equally important. And all of that B1 talk hopefully will get submerged under the sea of sycophants and rhetoric. Because what they're banking on is that black folks will fall for whatever shiny object the white media puts in front of them. But it ain't happening. So now what happens is we get this doggone stunt with Van Jones of all people, which has already been largely forgotten. And of course, Lamont, you big dummy Hill, with this so-called black news channel. And I already explained to you what the hell that little fraud is about. Yeah, you got the white powers that be. All of a sudden, they're doing stuff that they weren't even doing during the Obama years. Gee, whatever happened to black people are only the third largest ethnic group in the country, and all of this black folks are marginalized. The white media is trying to make it clear that black people's concerns aren't really front page stuff anymore. We're going to be dealing with Hispanics now because it's the numbers you see. Yeah, whatever happened to that? Now all of a sudden they're trying to be pushing black folks who are towing the white media line. And we're seeing them aggressively pushing these people at us. And doing little stunts like this $100 million nonsense in the hopes that they can incentivize black people to get off their square. But the real target is you. Too many of you are listening to us. But don't let this thing with Van Jones fool you at all. Before it's all over, you're going to have the IRS on him, or you're going to have him dragged into some sort of sexual assault accusation or sued under the same. It's always going to be something having to do with sex, and preferably with a white woman. But if they can't find a white woman in particular, just any black woman, preferably of immigrant origin, that they can find will fill the bill. So we already know how things are going to go with Van Jones before it's all over. But he wasn't the only one that the white media was deciding that they wanted to give a little bit of ink to. Charlamagne the fraud, the dog, the golf. Charlamagne, that loudmouth clown who has a little sideshow radio hustle in New York. Apparently, Stephen Colbert has decided to give him a gig, but it wasn't some spontaneous thing. It didn't just come out of nowhere. Apparently, even Charlemagne had to admit that, for a while, we've had some folks in the white media who've been trying to prop me up. Yeah. So when you see this guy on MSNBC and such, that was because they were trying to basically legitimize him and give him some sort of credentials. Oh, yeah, this guy who you never had on before and whose opinion you didn't care about. Now, all of a sudden, you care about his opinion. Stephen Colbert, who, by the way, has made his fair share of Cosby jokes, by the way, but apparently he's the one who's going to be pushing Charlemagne's little show that's supposed to be on Comedy Central. Now, there's some black woman whose name escapes me at the moment, but you guys have probably seen her. I think she's basically on Comedy Central too, I think. I don't really watch a lot of that cable stuff, so you'll have to forgive me. But there's some other black woman who I don't know if she's trying to be the next Tiffany Haddish or what have you, but you've probably seen her. And this seems to be more of the same. According to CNN, Charlemagne's little show is supposed to make good on his promise to bring more diversity to media. You listen to the crap that comes out of Charlemagne's mouth, it sounds like the same garbage that you get from every white liberal on TV. How the hell is that more diverse? He's going to be calling his show The God's Honest Truth. Well, hell, that's 3 lies for the price of 1. You ain't no God, you ain't honest, and ain't a damn thing you said the truth. And just in case you doubt me, keep in mind, the show is going to revolve around Charlemagne's culturally fluent take on social issues. Culturally fluent. That sounds, for some strange reason, talking about Charlemagne, it sounds an awful lot like sexually fluid. This is somebody who's sexually flexible, mind you. We don't want to be too intractable on those things. We got to be flexible, after all. He's going to have sketches, interviews, and social experiments. Well, we can already tell that they're all going to be failures. According to the press announcement, the show is described as redemptively comedic. What the hell is that supposed to even mean? Refreshingly unfiltered. Yeah, which is why he's going to sound just like Issa Rae, and he's going to sound like every other fool you've seen on TV, on cable. What, you think Stephen Colbert's putting him on because this guy's going to be radically different? Hell no, he's going to be towing the line. He's going to sound exactly like the crap that he was doing on his little radio show. Oh, but he also throws in unapologetically black. Gee, wonder where he got that phrase from. Why has he got to say unapologetically black? Because the black media are the ones who made sure that that phrase is in the front of black folks' minds. So here these clowns are trying to figure out if they can imitate our verbiage, if they can swing on the coattails of the language that we have brought to prominence. Then apparently that's going to give them legitimacy in the eyes of the grassroots, and it won't. Oh, his show is going to be with nothing off limits. Good. In that case, then I wonder if the anti-black racism in the LGBTQ community, I wonder if that's going to be a frequent subject of his little sideshow. I wonder how many comedy skits are going to have about that. Hey, how about the anti-black racism from all of these white feminists? Hell, you might want to have a thing or two to say about Maria Taylor losing her job at ESPN because Rachel Nichols, who, by the way, is still with ESPN, well, she had something to say about diversity at ESPN, and well, all of a sudden, the good folks at ESPN owned by Disney, they tell Maria Taylor, well, we're not going to be meeting your terms to extend your contract. Basically, whatever she said, they were going to say no to. But considering the fact that Charlemagne the fraud, Charlemagne the hog, Charlemagne the whatever, considering the fact that he has no problem getting all chummy with white supremacists like Tommy Lauren, I think it's safe to say that if you're talking about the racism that comes from white women in particular, well, Charlemagne ain't gonna have too much to say about that. Oh, he'll be treating it as isolated incidents. Oh, he'll throw out a Karen. He'll mention the word Karen here and there, but, well, let's be honest. When it comes to white women being racist against black folks, Charlemagne's not gonna say that it's off limits. Instead, it's going to be just very limited. But in the aggregate, this is a good thing. It's a good thing because what it shows is the white media understands that these Negroes who they've had who are supposed to be speaking for the streets, supposed to be speaking for the grassroots are increasingly tuning them out and ignoring them. And because white supremacy cannot change its program, because it cannot change its agenda and what it's doing, they're going to keep doing the same thing, just more of it. So what happens is we got to give Charlemagne a more high-profile gig. Got to get him in front of more eyeballs. The only thing it's going to do is to incentivize the Issa Raes and the roly-polies, but it's not going to move the needle with the grassroots. Because nobody looks at Charlemagne and goes, that's who I want to be. Nobody looks at him and says, yeah, that's a guy who is 10 toes in the game when it comes to being real. Nobody looks at Charlemagne and says, this guy is on code, on point, and this is somebody we should emulate. Charlemagne is the epitome of the unthreatening black male. All you gotta do is put him in a dress and this static portrait of emasculation would be complete. Oh, don't be surprised when that happens. Now that this guy is on camera, oh yeah, don't be surprised when he's running around in a dress before too long. They got him wearing a wig and some lipstick. 'Cause you know it's coming. Oh, I can see the comedy skit now. Charlemagne, Lil Nas X, and Kid Cudi doing a freaking trio together. I mean, this stuff practically writes itself as far as comedy goes, though I don't think anybody with any sense will be laughing. Granted, this guy is a joke, but not a very funny one. See, the bootlick doesn't have any other marketable skills other than kissing white supremacists behind, so that's what they do. But as we saw with Joy Reid, well, they'll go ahead and let you know that just in case you get the idea that you're in charge of something or that you got some sort of power, we're going to show you just how powerless you really are. And when we get ready to dump you, we're going to make it where you are completely and thoroughly radioactive. Nobody will touch you in a million years. That's the pattern, plays itself out every time, and yet the bootlicks never seem to learn. Oh yeah, they got it all figured out. See, they're smarter than everyone else. Everybody else was just doing something wrong. These guys, they have figured out how to navigate their way through this white world, you see, because they're so smart. Oh, but of course, as we all understand, when white supremacy puts one of these Negroes on, or at least pretends to, they already know exactly how they're going to usher you out the door when the time comes, and the time always comes. In the case of Charlemagne, before it's all over, that old rape charge, that's going to be coming back. That skeleton's going to come dancing out of the closet. Yeah, the white feminists ain't saying anything because they are propped up by a bunch of white males who tell them who to go after and who not to. Oh yeah, they're already setting up the frame now for the usual way that they go after a black man. You got to build him up and let the public know who he is, because most of the time, 90% of the public doesn't even know who the guy is. Nobody gave a damn about O.J. Simpson by the 90s. But you got to go ahead and build it up and prop it up and hype it up. Because we want people to understand this nigger here, he's a super nigger. He's the biggest thing since bread came in a bag. Everybody knows that it's more or less not really true, but it's a matter of we got to hype this guy up. You know, you don't have King Kong climbing the side of a building, so we got a black man who seems to have actually surpassed white people in a particular field. So what we're going to do is we're going to build him up as being just the biggest ever, even though none of these guys ever is. Because that's how you signal to the dominant society, this is the trophy we're going to put on our wall. He's not just some insignificant Negro you never heard of. Why, he's the biggest football player who's ever lived. Why, he is the most successful comedian who's ever lived. Why, he's the king of pop. Okay, well, the one with Michael Jackson, that is valid. But in the case of Charlemagne the fraud, I mean, they're calling him hip-hop radio's biggest voice. That's a hell of a stretch there, don't you think? But, you know, with the white media, especially when it comes time to set some black man up for the inevitable whammy, there's no exaggeration that's too ludicrous for them to say. I mean, after all, who's going to check them? Joy Reid? Rachel Maddow? Don Lemonade? Oh, yeah, you mean the other clowns who the white media's got on strings? Of course not. So you can go ahead and say anything you want about Charlemagne. You can call him the biggest thing in music, the biggest thing in radio, hip-hop's radio's biggest voice. This is how they start. We got to make sure people understand that this is a big black whale that we're hunting here. He's not some little minnow. So when we take him down, why, this is going to be a significant one. This is how much damage we're going to be doing against black people by holding this guy up as a symbol of, see, this prominent Negro over here. He was just so big and so powerful and so significant, and we crushed him like he was nothing. Outside of select portions of Brooklyn and the Bronx, if you were asking black folks about who's the biggest voice in hip-hop, especially on the radio, man, Charlemagne wouldn't crack the top 10. But before it's all over, they're going to be doing him just like R. Kelly. Don't know if he's going to be in front of Gail Skank or not. It's anyone's guess on that one. But the thing is, when Charlemagne was a young man, you had in 2001 an alleged sexual assault. And the story basically was told third hand by a friend of the alleged victim. But that's not the worst part. The worst part was, even though there was no actual evidence of anything happening other than an accusation, what they're going to try to say is that, well, the female in particular claims that Charlemagne violated her when she was 15. Now, the female's friend claimed that apparently they had been given a drink that tasted like soda, and apparently they were knocked out, and when they came to, there was some man trying to kiss them, and the friend says that the other woman who would accuse Charlemagne that she was naked and crying in the next room and said she had been raped, and this led to Charlemagne being arrested and eventually pleading guilty to contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Now, the thing is, of course, we're talking about freaking South Carolina here, which, by the way, is the same place that Stephen Colbert is from, ironically enough. So, a place like that, you better believe a black man understands that the dang chips are stacked against him. And it's one of those cases of, no matter how innocent you may be, it's a matter of what the hell do I have to do to get the hell away from some sort of rape charge. So you're going to be sitting here pleading no matter how little evidence they have, because all the prosecutors got to do is make it clear, nigger, I'm going to make sure you get put in front of an all-white jury. We going to make sure ain't no black folks on that jury. You going to prison, nigger. So that being the case, the prosecutor already knows they don't have to have a case. Just the threat of an all-white jury is going to be enough to get a lot of black men in particular to say, you know what, I don't even want to roll the dice on that one. But stop me if you've heard that one before. Black man accused, a prominent, well-known black man accused of violating a teenage girl. Yeah, you better believe before it's all over they're going to be comparing Charlemagne to freaking R. Kelly. Evidence be damned. They don't care what the actual evidence is, but all those white feminists, all the Me Too's, all of the Time's Ups, they're not saying anything right now. And that's because they're waiting until the time is right, when they get the go-ahead. And just in case you think, well, what are the chances of that? Keep in mind, Charlemagne had a plea deal. He pled guilty to some charge, and according to the county solicitor in Berkeley, they said that, well, they're going to be honoring Charlemagne's plea deal and that they can't reopen the case. Now, when's the last time we heard something like that? Sound like Bill Cosby? Is any of this sounding familiar? See, they showed you with Bill Cosby, they don't give a damn. If they decide that this is a nigger who we think that we can lynch in the courtroom, then all of a sudden, well, you know, this is different. Your plea deal be damned. Oh yeah, Charlemagne's probably going to find himself in the same position as Bill Cosby. And it's triple ironic because Charlemagne actually had stuck up, at least rhetorically. He would occasionally say, well, you know, the stuff about Cosby, it's all hearsay. If it wasn't hearsay, it was largely lies. They didn't have much in the way of people saying, well, I heard from somebody else. No, it was largely just stuff getting made up. Complete crap out of whole cloth. Oh, but next thing you know, about 6 or 7 months after Charlemagne decided that he was going to stick up for Cosby, or at least that he wasn't going to throw Cosby under the bus, well, apparently some of them white media folk got a hold of him and told him, you better stop that. And, well, Charlemagne said the deposition. You see the deposition. The deposition was what? Oh, after the deposition, when I found out about the deposition, that was enough for me. I can't defend this guy. Charlemagne didn't have anything to say about Bill Cosby's rights being grossly, blatantly, horrifyingly violated. Oh, we had the DA gave a declaration that there would be no criminal prosecution ever? Well, hell, in that case then, Charlemagne's thinking to himself, well, they wouldn't do that to me while we got it in writing, so the hell what? I'm not saying that I hope that happens to him. Believe it or not, I have absolutely no interest in seeing any black person, particularly black men who get targeted the most, thrown in prison, chewed up by white supremacy. But the problem happens to be Charlemagne has worked to empower the very white forces that railroaded Bill Cosby. And as we all ought to know by now, when you decide that you're going to play the fool for white supremacy, they always crush you. When it comes time, and the time always comes, they're going to deal with you too. That's the problem with being a tool for white supremacy. In the end, white supremacy always breaks its tools. That's just a guilty pleasure for these racists. They love that mess. Oh, so-and-so, this nigger over here, he climbed to the top of the music world, to the top of the entertainment world, and then look at how he crashed down. Look at how we took him down. It's a demonstration of their power. That's what it is to them. That's the part that they get off on. Oh yeah, this guy, he had an impeccable reputation. Yeah, the stuff we're saying about him are lies, but we can create reality out of whole cloth. If we say it, that makes it true. Oh, sure, it's illegal. We made it up. There's no evidence to support it. In fact, we contradict ourselves on every single word. But if we say it, people will go along with it, even when they know that all evidence is to the contrary. People don't think when the white media begins talking. They love that. That's their power. So I'm not terribly concerned about some sort of groundswell of clowns and fools, any black people who actually want to hear what Charlemagne has to say, you're not cut out for black empowerment to begin with. You want to follow the class clown? Have at it. The only place that fool can lead you is to a circus, and you're welcome to it. But this sudden flurry of Negroes getting propped up by the white media, oh, we're giving these guys some shows, we're giving them some money, but mostly we're giving these guys shows. Filter out whatever explanation, or rather cover story, the white media gives you, because that's just their way of trying to pull the wool over your eyes. That's the deception. And look at what it is that they're actually doing. Look at the timing of it. Oh yeah, after the black grassroots begin flexing, and after they realize, man, even after Kamala Harris got in the White House, black folks are not taking her seriously. The black grassroots, they're still listening to these black media types, and this is going to set the frame going forward. We need to send in the bootlicks, send them in, give them some shows, god dang it. We need to have these clowns on as much as possible, or as much as we can stand them. Because, the white media can't stand to look at black bootlicks too long. But out of morbid curiosity, might pay to at least look at who it is that Charlemagne puts on his little show. Because what'll happen is you're going to be having some Negroes trying to prop him up, and it pays to see who it is who's also hoping that they too can get a pat on the head, that they too are on the inside looking out. But hey, one has to wonder if Amber Phillips or Jamila LaPuke are going to come bombing onto his show. I mean, they already got themselves kicked to the curb with their little half-baked attempt to try to get themselves a show on the Breakfast Schlubs. We saw they crashed and burned. They look too pathetic doing that, by the way, begging for a job. Well, let's see if Charlemagne makes any room for them on his show. And given Amber Phillips' waistline, you're going to need to make plenty of room. But we all know what Charlemagne's little show is going to be. Is going to be basically toting a completely white liberal DNC line. There's going to be a little bit of talk about how the police are mean sometimes. There's going to be a few Karen jokes, but what's also going to be told to black folks is if you just keep trusting these Democrats, nobody's going to be talking about how all of this crap is corrupt and dirty and must be torn down to the rafters, that you have no friends. Instead, it's going to be, you got plenty of friends. You got these good white liberal friends over here. Yeah, these good white liberal friends like Stephen Colbert, who has no problem making Bill Cosby jokes. Well, assuming that white supremacy does to Charlemagne what they do to every black man who they see an opportunity to get their jollies by taking him down publicly, one has to wonder what kind of jokes Colbert is going to be making about Charlemagne.